One of the best things about a Donald Trump presidency was his inability to shut up. You know what I mean? What I mean by this is Donald Trump would just come out and say it. And so many people were refreshed by Donald Trump's lack of a filter. He called a woman a horse face on Twitter, and I kind of cringe like, it's funny, but come on, the president's supposed to be better than that. But, it was refreshing to see the presidency in such a way that, Donald Trump talks about the oil in the Middle East, how our troops are guarding it, talking about these weapons deals. I bring this up all the time because I'm like, this was a good thing. It was a president who was just being like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get all the oil, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, wow, he's just saying it. Some honesty. It's a little refreshing. Well, I got to be honest. Our current president's brain ain't all with it. And with that comes a whole lot of honesty. The reporting from timcast.com, Biden, I'm pushing to end the sale of multiple round rifles and pistols. Now, when I first saw this story, Joe Biden, he gives this town hall, and I'm like, no. Clearly, he must be really saying he wants to ban specifically the magazines. Okay, so this has been one of the big issues for the left. Or I shouldn't say the left. That's unfair to leftists who like guns. Whatever your criticism is of socialists, communists, and leftists, they like guns. They're like firing squads, just like the butcher of, Che Guevara. I forgot the name of the place. I call them the butcher because he's the firing squads. But anyway, yeah, the leftists love their weapons and everything. But anyway, among the Democrats, they want to get rid of what they call high capacity magazines, which has always been really confusing to me because I'm like, I mean, is it really a big issue if someone has a 500 round drum or belt or something? I mean, geez, that's high capacity, right? Because standard capacity would be like a 100 round drum. I'm kidding, by the way. No, Democrats think that anything over 10 rounds is high capacity, which is just absolutely absurd. And most people I talk to at gun stores or gun enthusiasts say 30 rounds is standard. And actually, that's true. I mean, when you get a weapon, you have to legislate to make manufacturers sell these tiny magazines for these weapons. But anyway, I'm like, no. Joe Biden's talking about high capacity magazines from the Democrat perspective, right? Wrong. What Joe Biden said was weapons that have the ability to take larger magazines should be banned. And that was like a whoopsie. You let the cat out of the bag on that one. Joe Biden, he just came out and said it. I can respect that. It's better than the Democrats being like, nobody wants to ban your guns. Quick, ban their guns. Just come out and say, we're going to ban your guns. And I say, okay, I won't vote for you, but therein lies the problem. They need to lie to people in order to get the votes. The other day, we had Ricardo and Jose Lamas on the Timcast Arrow podcast. Ricardo's an MMA fighter. Jose was a member of the anti-Castro underground revolutionaries. These are the people challenging the communists in the 60s. And he said that one day, Fidel Castro asked the famous question, guns, for what? And everyone was like, hey, that's a good point. For what? I have no answer. And then everybody gave up their weapons. Congratulations. Now they live under a communist dictatorship. Guns for what? For defending ourselves, our friends, and our families from tyranny, from oppression, from crime, from foreign invasion, threats both foreign and domestic. Joe Biden and the Democrats, they're getting dangerously close to that authoritarian question. Guns for what? In fact, they've already asked it, basically. I mean, there was that famous moment, I think it was Joe Biden, he ripped off this joke from, I think it was Robin Williams, where he says, what do you need 15 rounds for? Is the deer wearing Kevlar? Is the deer wearing Kevlar? And you know what's funny is that plays really well to people who have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to guns. If the deer was wearing Kevlar, I'm pretty sure my 5.56 or my 308 is not going to be concerned about the Kevlar because Kevlar doesn't stop rounds like, I guess if the deer was wearing plate level 4 or whatever, or FRAS, flexible rifle armor. Was it flexible rifle armor systems, FRAS? I got some of that. And then there's Dragon Scale. Dragon Scale's cool. It's where the ceramic plates overlap each other. Okay. If you wanted to come out and said the deer is wearing Dragon Scale, I'd still be like, you aim for, you're hunting, you aim for the head, I guess. It's a stupid point. These people don't know what they're talking about. They want to take away your guns because they know that guns do one thing. Empower you, level the playing field between tyranny, violence, and violent tyranny and regular people. Here's a story from timcast.com. During a CNN town hall on Wednesday night, President Biden said that he is pushing to end the sale of pistols and rifles that have the ability to fire multiple rounds. Biden also boasted that he passed legislation to eliminate assault weapons. Quote, I'm the only guy that ever got passed legislation when I was a senator to make sure we eliminated assault weapons, Biden said, referencing the 1994 federal assault weapons ban. The ban had no effect on firearm homicide rates or the number of mass shootings. In fact, a 2014 study found murder rates were 19.3% higher when the federal ban was in effect. Quote, the idea that you need a weapon that can have the ability to fire 20, 30, 40, 50, 120 shots from that weapon, whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous, Biden said. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things, but I'm not likely to get that done in the near term. Wait. Ban those things? Yes. Weapons that can have the ability to fire multiple rounds, 20, 30, 40, 50, 120. So there's a couple things we can infer from this. A weapon standard right now, like AR-15 or 9mm, they can take detachable magazines. You can attach a drum. So you can have a magazine that takes 60 rounds. These big, or 60, I think maybe, I'm pretty sure 60, right? Yeah, maybe. 30. But you can have drums as well. I can't remember what I have back at in the warehouse. But is Joe Biden saying he's going to ban a gun, all guns? The answer is yes. Why? Theoretically, we could be arguing that his statement truly means that he thinks AR-15s should be modified to be single load weapons or something. That makes no sense. I mean, what is he saying? That all AR-15s should be modified to be able to just, you open it, you push in the round, and then you close it, and you can shoot, and then you open it, you push it around. He's not saying that. He's saying modern weapons with detachable magazines, he wants to ban because you can make magazines of any size. And I saw this one really cool video where a guy made reloading tubes for a 12 gauge, and it was this big, long plastic tube, and he just pushes it all in at once and then drops it, and the shotgun's good to go. It's cool stuff. So Joe Biden is coming out and saying it. He's just coming out and saying he's saying he's not going to get it done, but at least he's saying it. Timcast.com reports further. Biden has previously made false statements about the 1994 federal assault weapons ban and the Second Amendment. During a speech in June, for example, Biden said the Second Amendment from the day it was passed included restrictions on guns. The funny thing about that is he's talking about slaves. Yeah. The Second Amendment from the day it was passed limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon. Wrong, you could. Biden said at the time, however, the Second Amendment places no limitations on the people. It was built to place limitations on the government by protecting the people's right to bear arms. Additionally, for the vast majority of the history of the U.S., you could, in fact, buy a cannon or any gun with no federal restrictions. It was not until 1934 when the first federal gun law was passed, and the states were not bound by the Second Amendment until the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868. The Democrats, they want to take your guns. They come out and they say, nobody wants to take your guns. It's already illegal in many states to have many regular guns. And I'll give you the example I love to cite. In Maryland, the M1A is a banned assault rifle. Why? Serious question. Why? Now, of course, I cite the M1A because I'm familiar with the M1A. I own one. Don't have one here in Maryland, of course, because that would be illegal. But the SCAR 20S, a more modern AR-style 308, legal. Absolutely legal. The M1A is essentially a better version of the M1 Garand, which used clips. With the clips, is like you'd have like a metal clip and you'd put the bullets in it and it would feed up. So the M1A, I don't know. I don't want to disparage the M1A. I'm a fan. I think it's fantastic. But you look at the SCAR 20S, which is a more modern AR variant with detachable magazines, and the M1A has it as well. But I look at the SCAR 20S, it's got a scope, and it's got, people put the bipod on it. And I mean, sure, you can modify the M1A, of course. But why is one banned and not the other? I mean, in fact, I'm pretty sure the M1A is chambered at 7.62, which is a lower pressure than the 308. And the SCAR 20S is 308. So theoretically, the SCAR 20S is like more powerful. But anyway, I digress. It's pointless. That's ultimately the point. There's no real rhyme or reason as to why it is or isn't illegal. In fact, Benelli shotgun. Oh, well, it's got a pistol grip. Therefore, it's semi-automatic with a pistol grip. It's illegal. But the KSG 25 double magazine tube tactical shotgun, that's fine. Their laws make no sense. But my friends, I ask you, I ask you, you support the police. You say Blue Lives Matter. And I say, to what end? You don't live in the cities, for the most part. Some of you do. But many of you live in the middle of nowhere where you don't need the police. And perhaps that's where the bias comes from. For the people who care about defending themselves, they probably don't interact with police all that often and think, what's wrong? We need police, right? I bring you now to where we are headed in Joe Biden's America. From BearingArms.com. Ohio woman arrested over gun after she called the police. What do you think the world is going to be like when Joe Biden gets his way? Joe Biden's going to have his stupid executive orders on AR-style pistols with braces. Oh, they're short-barreled rifles, he'll say. They'll add new items to the NFA. You'll get 50 BMGs banned. And what happens to the person who owns it? Well, there is a case right now where a guy had, they have these like home production kits, I guess, 80% lowers. I'm not super well versed on this stuff, but the general idea was the ATF said these are fine. People went out and bought them. Then they went, you know what? We changed our mind. They're not fine. And then they show up to a guy's house and arrest him. That's where we're headed. For Bearing Arms. Duty to inform is a legal obligation on a gun owner to tell police they're armed during any kind of contact with law enforcement. Some people, especially officers, like this because it keeps surprises to a minimum. Some gun carriers do it even without a duty to inform because they don't want officers getting punchy if they see a firearm. Obviously, there are some who want this to be law of the land. I am not one of them, frankly. I don't tell the police I'm a registered voter or that I exercise my right to free speech on a daily basis. So I don't see any reason to tell them I'm exercising my right to keep and bear arms. I just also make sure they have no reason to suspect I'm reaching for a firearm either. Frankly, I do that whether I'm armed or not. Part of why I oppose duty to inform laws is that people in stressful situations may well forget to tell the police things. That includes that they're armed for whatever reason. That seems to have landed one Ohio woman in handcuffs after she called the police herself. Quote, in the fight to change the law regarding the duty to promptly notify a law enforcement officer that one is legally exercising their right to bear arms in the state of Ohio, Buckeye Firearms Association is often asked what harm is the current law actually causing. Another such example comes to us this week from the city of Warren, where a woman who called the police for help in removing a wanted man from her home was charged for having forgotten to notify the officer that she had a concealed handgun license and had her firearm in her purse. She was legally bearing arms, and these scumbag cops charged her for it when she called them. Back the blue. You want to defend yourself. You want a right to keep and bear arms. You want to protect your home and your family. And these cops arrested a woman when she did everything right. So no, I'm not going to support them. A Warren woman who called the police to remove a man from her home was cited for failing to tell officers she had a gun in her purse. Police say they seized the concealed carry permit and a handgun from Ashley High School after she had called officers to remove a man who was at her Commerce Street townhouse early Tuesday. Officers arrested the man after confirming High School's claim that he is wanted on a warrant out of Cuyahoga County. One of the officers also asked dispatchers about the 33-year-old woman and discovered High School had a permit to carry a concealed weapon. When the officer asked her about a permit, she showed him a 9mm handgun she carried in her purse. Asked why she didn't tell the officers that she had the gun as required under Ohio law and taught in CCW classes, High School said she didn't know she had to do that and didn't remember much about the classes, according to the report. Police issued a summons for High School to appear in Warren Municipal Court to answer a charge of failure to notify. The officer also took High School's gun and the permit because that officer is a scumbag, a vile, disgusting piece of human filth. And if you think I'm going to defend any one of these officers that have been oppressing people and locking down their businesses, destroying their lives, and then they let Antifa go, and I mean the prosecutors, no sympathy, no empathy. I can defend cops who are unjustly targeted by BLM, Antifa and extremists. But in this regard, I'm at my wit's end, my friends. I'm not going to play these games anymore. I am not going to defend the police departments that do this. And the problem is any single department could. The woman was literally charged because she had armed herself when a wanted man was in her home and neglected to mention that fact to responding officers. The writer says, now I'm sorry. Nothing about this is right, and right here is why I refuse to support any duty to inform laws. While I believe it's no one's business whether I'm carrying or not, I also don't want to see someone get jammed up because they either didn't know they had to tell police or they simply forgot under the stress of the situation. Look, I have a lot of respect for police. However, we all need to remember that while some officers are very pro-Second Amendment, others aren't. They take an us versus them approach to society and will find anything to charge you with that they can. These aren't the majority of officers, but there are enough of them that you have to be careful. Removing duty to inform laws simply makes life easier for everyone. Editor's note, they say, support bearing arms, Second Amendment reporting, help them fight back against radical gun control. And as we just saw, Joe Biden certainly has that radical gun control agenda. I'm going to give you some sound advice, my friends, but I am not going to say it myself. I'm going to show you a critical race theorist, racist professor who says that you should never talk to the police ever. Myth-informed Milwaukee says Penn State professor tells his students never talk to police ever. Any wonder where the anti-police ACAB sentiment comes from? The message here should be never resist arrest ever. And I responded with, he's right, though. This guy may be a critical race theorist. He may be an extremist, racist, far-left crackpot. But a broken clock is right twice a day, isn't it? And he said you never, ever talk to the police. He is correct. Sorry. There is absolutely no reason for anyone at any point, for any reason, any at all, to talk to the police. And I can already hear many people saying, that's ridiculous. There are, of course, exceptions. No, there aren't. They say things like, what if you... So actually, let me show you. Myth-informed responded to me. The professor says a hard never. Don't you think there's any exceptions? What if you see something suspicious, so you never call them? What about talking to the police after witnessing a crime or car accident? Literally never without a lawyer? Correct. Your lawyer should do the talking always. Let's break this down. What if you see something suspicious? Okay. The likelihood that if you see something suspicious and you call it in, the likelihood something bad happens to you is slim to none. And it is fair to say that if someone were to break into my house, as I have in the past, I have called the police. Respectfully, I understand that when I say you never talk to the police, there's no such thing as absolutes. And of course, I'm being just a teeny bit hyperbolic, but I really do mean never. To be specific, you may exchange some words. Do not have a conversation with them. Do not answer questions. Do not give statements. So when I call the police and I tell them on the phone what happened, I let them talk to me. And I said, okay, yep, all right. What did the guy look like? Brown hair, X height. I didn't engage in hard conversations with these guys, and you shouldn't either. Let me explain. He says, what about talking to the police after witnessing a crime or car accident? I mean, that is the biggest mistake ever. A lot of people responded to this post with an excellent video from this lawyer out of University in Virginia. I think it was University of Virginia. I'm not sure. And he does this really great thing where he says, here's a news story I'm going to read to you. And then it says that there were 3 people who were found killed. They believe it was a gang style killing, and that it may have been a murder-suicide. The suspect is, X, Y, and Z. They're currently investigating. He says, remember that story. Later on, he says, now, I want to quiz you on the story I just told you. How many people did I say were shot in this killing? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Everybody raises their hand for 3. And then he says, all of you who raised your hand are the perfect example of why you do not talk to cops. I never said they were shot. And therein lies the problem. So let's talk about you witnessing a crime. You might not realize that there was some detail. And the example he gives is a cop can be like, did you hear about, we're investigating so-and-so's death. And you could respond with, look, I don't know anything about it. I don't know who that guy was. I don't even own a gun. I'm not even that kind of person. I have nothing to do with it. And they say, okay. Then in court, the prosecutor says to the officer, when you are the suspect, he says, was there anything odd about that conversation? He goes, I never told him the victim was shot. And then the jury goes, oh, he knew. But you were just passively like, I don't know. I think one of the best examples he gives is that you could say to the cop, look, I wasn't even in town that day. I was in a different, I was in a different place. You say that. But then some other witness identifies you accidentally saying you were. Now the cop says, I have a witness who places him in the city that night and he lied to me. And then the jury goes, oh, but the reality is the witness was wrong. What if you see something suspicious? What you're basically admitting to when you ask that is that you are party in some capacity to a crime and you want to insert yourself into it. Look, every good lawyer tells you not to talk to the police. This professor says you give them your name. And the advice given by every single lawyer, any good lawyer, is if you're ever talking to the police for any reason, you answer, depending on the circumstance, it's an almost absolute you never talk to them. This woman's going to jail because she called the cops. You see the problem here? When the police are out patrolling and they respond to violent crime in progress, that I get. Unfortunately, there is a problem here. What about a witness statement? What if the cops literally catch him and they say, can you provide witness statement so we can prosecute this guy? You do not know what the circumstances of the crime was. You do not know if you are a suspect. And I know it's a problem for cops. But even in this video they share, the cop says, do not talk to police. But what do I do? What if I have to call the cops? I know it's tough, isn't it? There may be circumstances where you have no choice. That I recognize. But what I'm saying is, if you have the ability and you are volunteering to speak to cops, you're making a mistake. Plain, straight up. I won't. Like I said, when I called the cops back when the guy tried to break into my house, I let them talk to me. They asked me what the guy looked like. I said, here's the description. That was it. I didn't go into great detail or explain much of anything else. And even that could be a risk. Now, the challenge is how to actively navigate this, but this is why I think there's a lot of people who want police reform. I don't know the solutions. I don't have all the answers. I think police provide a decent function. I believe that, unfortunately, to a certain degree, a government with a monopoly on violence is not completely bad. I got to be careful about how I say that, because what I mean is, I'm not a fan of the idea of private cops. I'm not a fan of the idea of competition in violence. The police have a monopoly, and there is civilian oversight, and there is an opportunity to get justice if the police do something wrong. Gangs don't have that. Mafias don't have that. Cartels don't have that. So I'm happy with the police constrained by the outrage of the public and just one organization. This is why I am not a right-wing libertarian. I'm a left libertarian. I recognize that there are some things that are hard to navigate, and I'm nowhere near anarchist. Libertarian just means smaller government. It's tough. It is. I got a big problem with cops, especially as of lately, because I tweeted this. We got Mitch McConnell talking about lockdowns coming back. It's happening. Okay, they're coming back. They're going to ease us into it. But these cops, we saw what they do. Not all of them. The good ones resigned. There are good cops who would not charge someone. But am I going to roll the die and be like, oh, come on, hopefully this is the cop who's actually going to be a good person? Or am I going to risk my life on whether or not to trust a stranger? I won't. I will be polite. You know, when I get stopped by cops, keep my hands up. When I'm reporting and the police arrest me, I say, I'm a reporter. Just want to let you know. And then when they say, do you have an ID? I say, yes. I do not have conversations with them. I do not give them statements. So let me try and be very, very clear on what this means. In any circumstance, anything you say can and will be used against you. Understand that. It will never be used for you. It can be used against you, and it will be used against you. And if you try to get the cop to say something to benefit you, they can just say no, hearsay. It will be used against you. Anything. That's what those words mean. Simply saying, good day, good sir, could be used against you. You know why? It's also brought up, there's another great video. Some lawyer's talking about it, and he said, you say, hello, good day, officer. Nice weather we're having, and walk away. Later on, when you are a suspect because you were in the vicinity of the crime and they believe it's you, the cop testifies. He was speaking to me and he sounded suspicious. Do you remember exactly what he said? I can't recall the exact words, but he seemed flustered and nervous when I spoke with him. And then the jury goes, oh, he's flustered and nervous at the scene of the crime? Oh, that's interesting. Sounds bad. And then you say, I simply said, good day, sir. Is that what you said? I think he said something else. I mean, we were talking. And then you get asked, were you speaking with the officer? I mean, I said stuff to him, yeah. There you go. Anything you say. Now, you say nothing. Officer says he didn't say anything, he didn't do anything. I thought it was suspicious. And then you just go, I didn't even do anything. I just didn't even say anything. It's not easy. It's not. The state has a lot of power and juries have their bias. So I'll tell you this. I fully understand. Sometimes you'll see a cop and he'll say, hey, which way did the guy go? And you'll be like, that way. I fully understand. Sometimes someone will attack you and they'll say, tell us what happened. The guy came and he attacked me. But I'm not surprised when there are people in poor neighborhoods who don't want to talk to police at all. And that is a big problem. And that's why I said the more libertarian approach. If these people don't want cops, then the cops should stop going. But it is tough. And I've certainly become more libertarian in this regard in the past few months, notably because of Mr. Michael Malice, who we cite all the time. What's up with that guy, huh? Making too many good points. But he pointed out the gun thing. He said that, I have a right to keep and bear arms, but because of the police, I can't in New York. And I'm like, you're right. Yeah, that's wrong. Here we are. A woman got arrested for it. Joe Biden wants to take your guns away. And I assure you, the police will gleefully take your weapons and say, F the Constitution. We don't care. Because if there's one good cop who won't, they will find the bad cop who will. Mark my words. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.